Listen to your heart when he's calling for you. Listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going.
Satellites don't exist. We must go back to science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke to find out more. The origins of satellites came from the mind of famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote the 1945 proposal for Geostationary Satellite Communications. Clarke was a high-level Freemason as well as a homosexual and self-professed pedophile. Thrown in Satanism and you've got a heck of a guy.
Geosynchronous or geostationary satellites were actually a fictional creation of the famous science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke, who was also a high-ranking Freemason. And about a decade later, they became a so-called reality that we all ended up paying for with our taxes and our higher bills for such things as cable and internet, things like that. So basically, a Freemason created a piece of fiction, and then all his compatriots convinced us all that it was tangible and a reality. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't people working on tech that is supposed to be satellite related. I'm saying that satellite tech does not go into space. Where they say satellites are actually located is in itself a work of fiction, like the concepts of warp speed and dark matter, multiple universes, or string theory, just to name a few. Before satellites were thought of, there were already technologies allowing us to send long-distance messages without wires. Ground-based systems for telephones and radio were being used by people on both sides of the pond. We were able to transmit through the atmosphere and skip signals off of the firmament, whatever that is, to the other side of the Earth using ham radios. There are many ham radio operators today and lots of clubs all over the world. Marconi sent a message across the Atlantic over, 100 years ago. And all technologies were well established and working fine using only ground-based operations. Today, we still use ground-based systems to connect to each other via cable television, phone lines, the internet with fiber optic, transatlantic cables, and RF towers. There's tens of thousands of huge RF towers used to broadcast all kinds of signals all over the world, and they're still being built in today's satellite age. Your cell phone signal has a limited range depending on who your provider is and how many towers their system is linked to. Even if satellites were real, they are simply not needed to do what they say they're doing. We can do it better and cheaper from the ground. People that work in the satellite field are really working on tangible things that really work and do what they say they're doing. But it is not what those techs and the rest of us are being led to believe, since space and everything up there is simply not as they're telling us it is. If there are devices up high in the sky helping with communications, then NASA probably reconfigures them to work wherever they want them to work. And maybe doing it with hot air balloons or some kind of secret advanced technology, but they're definitely not putting anything up in so-called space.
satellites and GPS.
As crazy as it may sound, satellites are a hoax. Have you ever wondered why there are never any damaged or fallen satellites? And why there are no satellite malfunctions due to constant heating and cooling? It's weird they don't melt in the thermosphere that's over 2,000 degrees. I find myself looking at the moon and wondering why we never see satellites pass by the moon. Did you know there are thousands of miles of fiber optic cables under the seabed that supplies 90% of the Earth's communication, internet, phones, etc.? And GPS works off of cell phone towers. It's called triangulation. Haven't you seen those really tall towers and wondered what they are? Satellite TV is just enhanced radio using ground-based towers. It's all ground-based, just like the old TV antenna. Science fiction author Arthur C. Clarke proposed the idea of geostationary satellites in 1945 in a magazine called Wireless World. And 20 years later, in 1965, they claim to have successfully launched the first commercial geostationary communication satellite. Today, there are said to be thousands, but the odd thing is that trying to prove it only leaves you fruitless.
With all the videos I'm making covering the flat Earth lately, I'm getting a lot of questions about satellites. You know, this is their evidence that the Earth is a ball. Now let's take a look at these images of these satellites. Do these look real to you? I want you people that talk about satellites all the time to show me a real image of a satellite. All you get are these C.G.I. images, not a single real image of a satellite anywhere. Why is that? All we get is this fake garbage. You get a C.G.I. satellite, you get a C.G.I. planet, all bogus, 100%. So, for all you people coming to my channel, talking about satellites, make a video, produce real satellites. You can't do it because they don't exist. Period. Supposedly close to 3,000 satellites up in space. Again, all we get is this fake garbage. Now let's look at what ISS has to produce as far as real satellites. Get that fake garbage. Looks like a video game. Where are the satellites? You don't see any because they don't exist. Look at this. Wow. You believe this is real? If you believe this is real, you're going to believe every single lie NASA, the media, your government tells you. You've been completely blinded from birth. You believe everything you've been told your whole life. And any time someone questions an official story by your leaders, you get angry, you get upset, you get defensive. Because no one likes to be told they've been lied to their entire lives. But all you get, again, is computer animated garbage. Your whole life is nothing but garbage. Now with the supposed live feed from the ISS, you get this bogus C.G.I. satellite here. Where are all the rest of the satellites? Where are they? How can people see through this deception? You believe this is real? You gotta be kidding me. Again, complete mockery on the masses that take lies as truth and truth as lies. Now let's take a look at some photos supposedly from NASA of the ball Earth, the blue marble, spinning at 1,000 miles an hour in space. You believe these are real. All fake garbage. Again. How people can't see this? No clue. It's a waste of time arguing with these idiots that can't see their own two eyes. Unbelievable how the masses completely blinded by their masters.
International Space Station, can't you get a photograph that has all these little dots that should look like lice all around the Earth's outer atmosphere? That's one issue, but also the temperature. They tell us the thermosphere is 2,000 degrees Celsius. Well, what metal is going to be able to withstand that kind of heat? What computer can survive in that environment?
Yeah, that's right. Those are two more good points for why satellites, well, we shouldn't just assume that these things exist just because people say they do. If you want to be scientific and you want to be a real skeptic, you want to be a critical thinker, then you should only accept things that you can verify with your senses and with evidence yourself. So, people think it's crazy to believe that satellites don't exist. But really, it's crazy to believe that satellites do exist when you have no evidence and can never verify it for yourself. Just like these space programs and space telescopes and all these other things that we will never confirm. As far as we know, if I go up on a plane and I jump out, I'm coming back to Earth. Doesn't matter how high I go. I'm not going to start floating at some point like they claim happens, and has to happen if there are satellites out there. But as you said, if you look at the pictures of satellites and the pictures that these satellites are supposedly taking, they're all C.G.I.
A cell phone tower is a giant microwave oven on a stick. Cell phone towers use a magnetron or an oscillator like a microwave oven to make microwaves. That's how they communicate. Radars use the very same technology. That's beaming into the dish is a magnetron. Just like a microwave oven and just like a cell phone tower. Now let's do a quick comparison to put things into perspective so that you can appreciate, so that you can wrap your mind around what we're trying to tell you here. 2 hair dryers together use about 2,000 watts of power, or 2 kilowatts. That's the same amount of power a telecommunications satellite uses to send a signal 20,000 miles away back to Earth. What's important to remember here is that technology is punishment in disguise. It all has a side effect, and it's obvious that these companies that are running this technology, they are not our friends. Worse yet, they run our government. They control our food supply, our water supply, our air supply.